Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Dieter Melhorn Fishing Podcast. I hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to the show. If you're in the southeast, you're wet. We've had Tropical Storm Debby come through. Was a hurricane for a brief period, crashed into the coast of Florida. Came across, turned into a tropical storm. It's probably a tropical depression by now. I haven't looked at what the barometer's saying, but went back into the Atlantic yesterday and now has made a turn, made landfall again early this morning, is coming back up through the Carolinas, and it is dumping a lot of rain. And obviously this isn't a weather report. We're going to talk about how this pertains to fishing and catching fish. And it's going to be interesting to see how much rain we get. It was funny, it fell apart for a large part yesterday. The rain really died off. There was a lot of moisture to the west, and it kind of kept the amount of rain that we were getting kind of low. And this morning, as it made, a matter of fact, when I went to bed last night, it wasn't that bad. There was some stuff along the coast. And then overnight, it started to grow in intensity in rain. Not so much wind. There's going to be some 20, 30 mile an hour winds. Nothing big with the wind. That's not an issue. But the rain started. And then, I don't know, sometime early this morning, my alarm goes off on my phone with a flood warning. So pretty much the eastern part of North Carolina, depending on which radar app you use, is covered in green. So you can take a look at that and see just how much is going on here. And I know this doesn't pertain to people around the country, because there's some of y'all sitting probably in some 90-degree weather today wondering, what are you complaining about? We're burning up here. Well, here it's cloudy. It's raining as I look out the hotel window here from my plush accommodations here in Raleigh where I'm at. I'm actually in the eastern part of the state, not where I'm normally at. And we've actually got tornado warnings just a few miles east of here. There were some tornadoes that touched down early this morning, some house damage. I haven't heard of any fatalities yet, but anytime you get tornadoes in the middle of the night like that, they're the most dangerous kind, because people are asleep, they're in their house, they don't know what's going on. So hopefully all that is working out for the best. There was an elementary school that was hit, some roof damage to it. So potential for some tornadoes and these little feeder bands that come through. So while I love to fish in this stuff, to the fishing end of it, I love to fish in these leading edges of these storms. There's usually a good barometric pressure drop. There's usually a lot of wind. I like drifting and trolling and dragging baits when there's a lot of wind. But depending on where you're at, it can be dangerous. So if you're crazy and going out today, be careful, especially in some of the areas that are going to be more tornado prone, and that's going to be eastern North Carolina. But what's going to happen, most of the area got about anywhere at the rain totals I was seeing from 1.5 inches to 2 inches of rain. I think Charlotte, North Carolina set a record for this date, not an all-time record, but a record for this date this morning with the rain that they had. You're going to start to see a big inflow into the rivers and the lakes. And generally for fishing, as I've said before, that can be good, especially after we've had kind of a stable water level for a pretty long time. It's good in that initial part, but this is going to increase rapidly. You're going to start to see some massive runoff, because we got flash flood warnings, and that's when you get some of these little cells. While the overall may be 2 inches, you may get 2 inches dumped in, an hour or two. That's going to cause some flooding. It's going to create a lot of runoff in the creeks, a lot of mud getting pushed down, especially around these urban areas where there's a lot of development going on. So it's going to rise rapidly, and they're moving water through these systems. Every system in the Carolinas is moving a lot of water through, because they can't contain it all in the lakes. So there's going to be a lot of flow, and that flow is going to go all the way down to the Atlantic Ocean. So you're going to see a big influx through Santee Cooper, the lakes down there. If you're all the way up in Virginia line, Kerr Lake is going to see a big inflow of water down into Gaston, all that area through there. So there's going to be a lot of runoff. Lakes are going to go up. There's going to be a lot of current. And there's going to be a period where the fishing's going to be good, but I got a feeling the bite is going to get tough. It's going to get tough to fish. It will probably, in some of these smaller rivers, get dangerous to fish just by the amount of flow, current, debris, and everything else going on. So the impoundments are probably a better bet here over the next few days for finding fish in a safe manner. But even those, especially in the river sections that feed them, it's going to get dirty. I'm going to keep an eye on my Omnia app. I've got this Omnia fishing app that shows water quality, or clarity, I should say. And I'll put you a link down in the description where you can check it out. Just to see what it does to the water clarity. I'm going to try to get some screenshots of that to see how accurate it is and how it does with this, because we will have muddy water in a lot of these reservoirs. And that's not necessarily bad for fishing. I like fishing it at some point, but you're going to have to change your strategy for fishing if you're fishing reservoirs. You guys that fish rivers deal with this a little more often. You've always got current to deal with. You've always got moving water. Big rains just, will change how much moving water you have and how fast it is moving. In the lakes, outside of the releases from the dam, we don't really deal with a lot of current. The current is very minute most of the time. And when you get something like this, it will pick it up. Now, there is a limit to how much water they can move through there and how much current you're going to get. In most of the larger lakes, you never have to worry about, just using a single anchor in the middle of the reservoir. It's not that swift. But when you get into the upper reaches, it can be a little more swift and a little more current. The good news is for you guys that bank fish, it can be a good time, because a lot of times these fish will either A, go really deep into structure and hide to get out of some of the current, or they may be up toward the bank to duck out of the current. Depending on where you're bank fishing, pay attention to what the water's doing, which you can look out and you can see the current moving through. But then you may look where you're at and throw a stick out in the water, and the water's barely moving. Depending on where you're at, if you're in a bend, an inside bend, you may have an area to where the water is slowing down. It can be a place where fish will stage up. So it can be a good place. It can be a good time for people bank fishing to catch fish when this happens. But also be careful. Water is pushing in. It's pushing in higher. The places you could walk before, you may not be able to walk now. And a lot of times on some of these steeper banks, the water is pushed up right to the steep banks. The worn out beachy area that you would normally have may be underwater, so it can be a little bit precarious getting into some of these places, so be careful doing that. But what's going to happen is this stuff's going to crest, and it's Thursday now. Projections are for like the Catawba Basin, the Acton Basin, sometime to be cresting Saturday, maybe into Sunday. And then it's going to start to drop. And that's, in my opinion, is when the bite really goes downhill. As all this stuff rises and keeps going up, things can get better. There's new water, new areas that these fish will push into. And then once it starts dropping, it's like if you were sitting in this room and, it's pouring down rain and everything's good and you're eating and there's food, and then all of a sudden the ceiling starts closing in on you. At first you're going to look up there and go, well, that ceiling's getting lower. But at some point you're going, how much lower is it getting? I'm getting out of here. So that's kind of what's going on with the fish and what will end up happening. And that will probably lead to a very dead and stifled bite here, probably by Saturday, Sunday, somewhere in that time frame. So kind of keep that in mind. This is a cycle that is not just here. It will happen pretty much anywhere you get a massive rainfall. Obviously, in the Atlantic seaboard states, the Gulf states, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, those areas, you guys get these tropical systems that move in and dump a lot of rain. You have the potential for it. You guys in the upper Midwest, maybe not as much, but you still have rain systems that move through to put a lot of water in. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind with what's going on. And, if you're in the Carolinas, one thing, make sure your stuff's charged up. I'll say that. We're already hearing of power outages here. A lot of this is from trees. And some of the wind, the wet soil, trees going down where, my home county, it's got about 26,000 people. There's 70-some thousand people without power there. So make sure you've got power for your cell phone at least. I keep one of these little charging banks. This is from Toros, the same people that made the neck air conditioner that I had, if you've seen that video. They sent one of these. I'll put you a link to the description. It's one that you can lay a phone on and charge, or you can plug into it and charge. Have that kind of stuff charged up. You probably don't need the rechargeable neck air conditioner right now, but having one of these little power banks for your phone, because once the power goes out, you can't charge that phone. So make sure it's charged the entire time, and then have one of these around to charge stuff with. It comes in handy because you never know when the power is going to go out, why it's going to go out, how long it's going to go out. So keep that kind of stuff in mind too for you guys that are in the Carolinas and putting up with all this rain. It's going north. It's going into Virginia. It'll be into Virginia probably tonight and into tomorrow. There'll be a lot of rain there. So the anglers are in Virginia, Maryland. It's going up the seaboard. The good news is, for most of those, it's picking up speed. So I don't think the rain impact on the fisheries is going to be as significant, but there is going to be some rain, especially the lower end there. That Virginia, Maryland area is going to get a lot of rain dumped too. So it will, it's a interesting scenario, and it's a thing with weather that I tell y'all all the time, is that just you have to kind of pay attention to what's going on. It can play a factor in whether you're catching fish or not catching fish, and it's good to be weather aware on what's going on. This one's been coming for a while. I think the fishing would have been good leading up to this. I talked to some people that were catching some fish. They were moving a lot of water through these systems to lower the lakes to account for the inflow. So there was a lot of stuff going on, and I think the fishing was good. We'll see what happens as this thing goes out. I think it's going to go downhill. I'll try to give y'all some reports. I'm going to be out on the water this weekend fishing, and probably going to be into a mess this weekend fishing with the water conditions. But hey, it's when I got an opportunity to be out there, and as I said before, I will go when I can go and deal with what I got to deal with when I'm out there. So I hope y'all get a chance to get out, and if so, I hope I catch you out on the water.